we're doing a little experiment here. I'm mic'd up like crazy here with cameras. I have a house mic, and then I also have a handheld mic. We're going to try to go around. And we've got a couple of other folks, Trevor, I think, and Trevor over there. And who's got the other mic? Is it Ryan? Someone else is going to be over here. So as we're going, we're going to have conversation. I hope it's a constructive dialogue. I hope that we are going to be positive. We do have some students in the audience. All right. Glad the students are here. This is your representative Republican action, and I hope they come away with a positive experience. Don't you? All right. And we had a good town hall up in Baldwin a week ago Saturday. That had been a town hall that I had announced on January 26th. We had been planning it actually for over a month prior to that as part of a snowmobile tour, an annual snowmobile tour that I do in the northern part of the district. Obviously, we can see what happened because of the weather, but I decided I wanted to keep my promise to the folks in Baldwin that I would do my first in-person town hall with them. We have also done 3 telephone town halls. We're going to continue to do those. This is our first in-person town hall down here on the southern part of the district. We're going to be doing others as we are seeing developments happen in the political world. And I'm pleased you're here. I really am. This is good. It's good for me to hear your voices. I want you to hear other people's voices as well. And then also, obviously, you're going to be getting some of my input and my take on things. I suspect we're not all going to agree. No, we're not. And that's okay. I happen to be married to someone who doesn't always agree with me, or more importantly, I don't always agree with her. She's always right, which is true. But we as families and as co-workers and as friends, we don't always agree, and that's completely fine. I did have someone who was extremely frustrated with me up in Baldwin. When apparently my voice annoyed her, is what she was saying. I said to her, I apologize. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry that my voice, literally the sound of my voice, annoys you. She said, well, you're not listening. And I said, well, I am listening. I'm understanding where you're coming from. I happen to hear you and know that this is a heartfelt conviction of yours, but I disagree. She said, then you're not listening. Well, we're not always going to agree, and that's okay. So I'm looking forward to this. We're going to have 2 hours here of where we're going to be able to talk. I apologize on the front end with 1,000 people in here. We are not going to be able to get to every single question. I would imagine we will hit a number of the genre. A number of you had, of the types of questions that we're going to have, a number of you expressed your questions to me as I was welcoming some of you in and saying thanks for coming. They want to talk about ACA. Who here is here to talk about Obamacare? ACA. Okay. Who here wants to talk about immigration? So, who here? Okay. Who here wants to talk about taxes? Okay. Who here wants to talk about the environment? We're gonna hit all that and more. All right. It wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right. So yeah, we got education. We'll be getting to education. So. Tell you what, I'll be respectful of you. I would ask that you be respectful of each other. I know that there's going to be people disagreeing. I can ask you to be respectful of me, but I understand that beating up on your congressman is a national pastime in American politics. That's just fine. We're going to have to get to know each other a little bit better because I've got an Irish sense of humor. It is completely fine. If I was that much of a snowflake, I don't think I'd be here. There we go. All right. So I've been told I got to quit joking and get to it.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right. So here's what I would like to know. I want to talk to the person who drove here the furthest. Who came from the furthest away within the district? Baldwin. Okay. Where else? Do we have anybody north?
Oceana County.
Okay. Oceana. Where else?
Wyoming. Cooper.
Wyoming. Mason County. I didn't hear whatever that was, but so far I've heard Mason. Okay, well, how about the Mason person? Let's go to Mason. That is our furthest north geographic area. So.
Test.
Why don't you come?
My name is Kathy Ingram, and my question is about the port, or Mike Lee said that folks are in Congress are thinking about bringing back pork ideas, pork spending.
Are you talking about earmarks?
Yeah.
Earmarks, yeah. Sorry, 1 second. That has been a discussion, but we have written it into the House rules that there are no earmarks allowed. So in the 6 years that I've been there have been no bridges to nowhere, those types of projects that were thrown in there to oftentimes just sort of gain votes. Well, the wall wouldn't be an actual earmark. An earmark is something that was for a specific congressional district or a specific city or something like that. Now, having said that, there is, I believe, too broad of a definition of what an earmark is, and here's why. I'm involved in a lot of sort of the Great Lakes infrastructure. I've been working with the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, getting that to actually be used for harbor maintenance. A number of other things with the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and we had tried to put some language in at one point talking about shifting some dollars into the Great Lakes. The powers that be said, well, that's actually an earmark. We said, what state's it for? They said, well, it's the Great Lakes. It's like Great Lakes touches a whole bunch of states, and oh, by the way, it's international. And we said, what congressional district is it for? They said, well, it doesn't matter. We view this as an earmark. Well, that's not an earmark. An earmark is Bill Huizenga walks in and says, you know what? I need X for Grand Haven. And that would be a specific earmark. So no, ma'am, that is not happening in the House. There's been some discussion about doing that, but I don't see those. No, I won't support it. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to come down front right here and let you have an opportunity. So.
Hi. My name is Carol Bronson. I am not a paid protester. First of all, I want to thank you for stating that you would stand up to Trump about the 97% cut to the budget for protecting the Great Lakes, and I hope that you will also... I hope you will also defend the EPA. There are several bills that have been introduced in Congress that are very troubling to myself and many of your constituents. The most concerning to me is HB 610, vouchers for education. Teacher, and education needs to be for all students. A voucher system will increase costs because now we'd be funding private and all religious schools with a voucher system. One last point I'd like to make is that these are very scary times. We have never had an administration as we have currently in the White House. It's extremely disturbing that the GOP is putting party before country by not speaking. By not speaking out against the actions and accusations being made without any evidence. This is not politics anymore. This is a matter of national security. We are looking, I don't have a question. We are looking to you and other elected officials to stand up to the shenanigans going on and to protect us from these troubling actions. Thank you.
So let me just, so I can recap, I want to hit the three things. We had the GLRI, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, the EPA, and then the GOP. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, education, 610. Okay, thank you. All right. So GLRI, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. So just so everybody understands how the process works, the president is required by law to propose a budget. By the way, it didn't happen under the Obama administration in time.
Election's over! Election's over! Do your campaigning! Election's over!
So what happens though is it's purely a document that is proposed. So what they are preparing is they are preparing this document that goes to the House of Representatives. The Constitution says though, purse strings are controlled by the House of Representatives. All spending bills have to initiate here in the House. It's not in the Senate, it's not with the White House, but this was back, I think the 74 Budget Act required that a president put forward a budget and budget priorities, all right? So that's what they're doing. Mick Mulvaney, who is the head of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, is somebody I know well. He and I served on the Financial Services Committee together. I haven't had a chance to communicate this directly with Mick, but have to the White House. I led a bipartisan group. I think we had 26. I'm getting confused because we had two things that we were dealing with: the Brandon Road release on the Asian carp and that study that the Army Corps of Engineers was, and then also this Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. So I chair. I'm the Republican co-chair of the Great Lakes Task Force. There's a Democrat co-chair as well. So there's four of us that head this up. I headed up a letter that expressed our disagreement with the president on that cut. It was $300 million. So this has been an agreed upon amount for a number of years. We can't pre-spend or set aside, but or earmark. But we had said that we are going to have a goal of setting aside this $300 million a year for I think it was like a 4 or 5 year period to make sure that when we are doing restoration projects, somebody over here was from White Lake. When I went to work for Pete Hoekstra exactly 20 years ago, one of my first meetings was with a woman named Holly Hughes. Holly's here tonight, I think, somewhere. Sar, where is she? Okay, well, Holly's now a state representative from Muskegon. At the time, she was not. She was a White River Township, I believe, trustee, and had White Lake in it. Tannery Bay was a huge, huge contamination site. All of White Lake was a Superfund site, and there had been a plan to clean that up. That was done. They've actually delisted White Lake, which we think is a huge accomplishment. And it was people leading, like Holly and others in the community, that led for that cleanup. So that's one of the reasons why I disagree with the administration on that. EPA. EPA, I think, has a role, but I believe that EPA has far overstepped its bounds. right here in our community. A specific example right here in our community. It's called Structural Concepts. All right? Structural Concepts is a company in Norton Shores that builds all those open-air refrigerator cases. When you walk into the gas station or into a Starbucks or into a lot of other places, they literally supply the nation for those types of things. They had conflicting regulations coming out from the EPA and from the Department of Energy. The EPA said, well, we don't care what the Department of Energy says. The Department of Energy says, well, we don't care what the EPA says. And the fine folks at Structural Concepts says, well, we care because either way, if we adhere to the EPA, we're out of compliance with the DOE. If we adhere to DOE, we're out of compliance with the EPA. And guess what? 500 jobs are going to go away. All right? So the issue was on the refrigerant. And their issue was on the refrigerant and the use of it. So what had happened is we said, hey, EPA, DOE, we'd like you to communicate. And they basically, it's one example of a lot of different types of things. Hold on. Okay, I got beat up in Baldwin because I didn't talk enough about the district specifically. This is 500 jobs here in Muskegon County. 500 jobs. And because you've got out-of-control bureaucrats that refuse to talk to each other, they're putting those jobs at risk. Terrible idea. So do I believe that the EPA, along with a number of other bureaucratic agencies, need to be reined in? Absolutely. So 610. All right, 610, which was brought to my attention also up in Baldwin, is a bill that Steve King from Iowa has proposed that would do a number of things. One of those including some changes of definitions for what vouchers, about education vouchers. So I've not supported that. I don't support the bill, haven't co-sponsored the bill. I think here in Michigan, we had an election over that a number of years ago. That was sort of a settled point in my view. But here's, I do believe in educational choice. I believe that charter schools are a part of this. My kids happen to go to a private school, and here's why. Here's why. Because I don't believe, it has nothing to do with that. I don't believe it's appropriate for you to be forced to talk about God and Jesus and in a Christian education with my kids. All right, I don't believe that a public school, that's the proper role. So I'm willing to use my after-tax dollars to go send my kids and give the education that I, as a parent, decide that they should have. And unlike Canada, where they fully fund the Roman Catholic schools and that kind of thing, I don't see that happening here in the United States. Your fourth part of your roll into questions. Yeah, party versus country. Look, there is a lot of well-intentioned people trying to do the right thing, and I can tell you this. There is no way that I'm putting my party over the country. Here's what I believe.
I hope you're telling the truth.
Here's what I believe, though. What I believe oftentimes aligns with that particular party. Now, there's people within the party that disagree, all right? And as I tell, when I go into schoolrooms, I just talked to Fruitport schools earlier today, high school students, all right? I tell them, you know what, Maine, Michigan, Montana, and Mississippi all have in common the letter M. That's about it, all right? And you have people with different perspectives from around the country. And the divides that we have oftentimes get portrayed as partisan. You know, you're an R and I'm a D and we're going to beat each other's brains in purely because of the letter behind our name. That really doesn't happen nearly as much as it gets portrayed, frankly, in the general mass media. The difference
Look at your voting record.
The difference is the philosophical underpinnings. The philosophical underpinnings. The philosophical underpinnings of both parties. Because you could say the exact same thing. You could say the exact same thing for the folks that put Obamacare into place. And guess what? Bart Stupak paid a political price for that when he had agreed, and he thought he had a promise. Unfortunately, he got lied to. And he thought he had a promise on what was going to happen with abortion care and coverage. And so there's a lot of people that try to throw around this whole, you care more about your party than you do the country. No, we're not going to rehash what Bart Stupak had to go through with the Affordable Care Act. So absolutely not. I'm first and foremost a Christian. I'm an American, and party falls a dad, a husband, and party falls down below that. They happen to share my philosophy. Trevor, why don't you grab the lady right? Don't say that.
Christian and then a politician. I am also a Christian and then a citizen. I'm also not a paid protester, for the record. I would like to follow up on the Bill 610 and how you're going to protect IDEA. I have a son with a learning disability, and without extra money to educate him, he will fail. I'm a physician assistant at a clinic in Grand Rapids that looks after the homeless. Most of my homeless patients got that way because they have learning disabilities and they don't have strong families to be that safety net for them. In a great society, we need safety nets. How are you going to protect that for us?
610, at least in the reading that I've had, has nothing to do with IDEA. All right? So,
they're talking about terminating
so
it.
IDEA, though, as you all know, and I worked for a period of time actually at my kid's school. The Christian Learning Center is based at Zeeland Christian. We had 53 high-needs, special needs kids in the school.
That was because of Barb.
Yes.
She is not like other Christian educators, sir. That is not a good example. That is an outlier.
Barb is. No offense, but you have no idea who Barb is. So. We do. Yeah. So Barb's a phenomenal person. What that is, my only point is that we saw families come in from literally around the country because they knew that those kids were going to get care. The dirty little secret is the federal government has been lying to school districts for decades about IDEA funding. Talk to anybody who's involved in special ed. Talk to anybody who's involved in special ed, and you know that the promises of IDEA. We don't have to disagree about everything, folks. We can actually agree about a couple of things. So you know that IDEA put in requirements for local school districts to do certain things with their special needs children, with their students. They didn't, however, fund it. They said they were going to fund it, but they didn't fund it. And so what I believe we need to do, and something that I have supported, is increasing that funding and, frankly, just getting back to our promise that the federal government has done. So that's what I intend to do, to continue on with the IDEA and making sure that that funding is continued. So, all right, Rod. Yeah. Sure, right there. Yeah, why don't you just kind of scoot out a little bit.
One that was just introduced. There's another one, Determined for the Department of Education. That's the one that she probably should have.
Bill, I'm Doug Suter from Holland, Zeeland actually, self-employed, and I've been on what you pejoratively call Obamacare, which I wish you would quit calling that. It's the Affordable Care. Bill is because none of the Republicans decided to get involved and support it. That, my friend, is where they put the party above the people. I say that our health care system is a wreck. And it is a wreck. We pay more for health care in this country than all the other developed countries. And yet we get very mediocre outcomes. We have asked for a public option. We've heard about that. They won't do that. They've got to have an entrepreneurial, laissez-faire system in some ways. I understand that. So why don't you think outside the box a little bit and just go to a cap system for insurance, where insurers are only on the hook for $500,000, and then we come up with an umbrella type policy over that, where taxpayers can kick in and everybody gets covered that way. It seems to me that the only thing that they've got in their mind is to throw money at the states and let the states figure it out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Here's why it doesn't work. The insurance companies know exactly how to game this deal. All they got to do is take a look at a 55-year-old man and a 22-year-old man and raise their deductibles so that you don't get to touch that money. You paid a high premium and you don't get to touch your money once you actually get sick. Now, what bothers me about that is that you guys are going to end up in the government getting game for the money you're thinking about putting back into the states. And us, we're just going to pay higher deductibles and be in the same trap over and over.
All right, so let's do a little instant poll here, all right? Who here believes that we ought to have a government-funded, single-payer, picket Canadian type of thing? Who here believes that Obamacare, ACA, was the wrong direction to go in the first place? Sorry, folks, you're outnumbered, but here in this room. So let's talk a little bit about what happened with ACA. By the way, Obamacare is a moniker he adopted as well. Okay, we want to talk about respect. Let's talk about respect. How about the lectures that I've gotten for 6 years about not only showing the office of the presidency respect, but about the person who resides in that office. And oh, by the way, I've got a constitutional moral obligation. I've got an obligation, constitutionally and morally, to keep government opening and functioning and working for the American people. We need some people looking in the mirror these days. All right?
Look in the mirror.
So, the ACA, why it passed with 0 Republican votes is because they rejected every single Republican idea that came in. Any of the amendments, any of the bill ideas, they absolutely rejected it. That's why you didn't have one single Republican vote. Yeah, absolutely. So what we need to do now with it,
Massachusetts.
one second, what I believe we need to do now, I don't believe it's repairable in the structure that it's in. The promise of greater care, better care to more people at a lower price didn't happen. You had one of the three. Okay, what's not what we have now, all right? We don't have a single-payer system. So, one of the three things happened. We got more people onto an insurance program. That was Medicaid, by the way, the states that you're talking about. They saw a massive increase in Medicaid. And so when I served in the state legislature, and I know Holly is here, we've got Roger Victory who's a state rep, I saw him here. We got, I don't know if we have some others, but they will tell you the 3 largest drivers at any state, well, at least in Michigan's specific case, is going to be education, number 1, corrections, and healthcare. Medicaid. Roger, I think you were on the appropriations committee, right?
You're right on the money.
All right. Those three things drive the state budgets. And I believe that the federal government knew what it was doing when it offered out the bait to states and said, tell you what, you take these folks on, we're going to give you 90% of all of what it costs you to expand your roles. By the way, for disabled, that national average is 57%. So healthy, working age, able-bodied person going put on Medicaid now through the ACA gets 90% reimbursement rate from the federal government. And the category of disabled, it's 50, the national average is 57. I don't know if you know what it is in the state here, Roger, but so the states are part of this. Any way you cut it. One of the biggest challenges that we are dealing with right now is how do you segregate out and figure out what to do with the states? Because some states, headed by Republican governors, accepted it. Some of those rejected it. Some of those states were headed by Democrats, took on those additional dollars and those people. Some of them rejected it. All right? So now the question is what do we do? How do we not penalize those states that didn't take it? And by the way, the federal government had said it was going to be a downward slope. My guess is that most of the state folks thought that they were going to be able to sort of goad the federal government into keeping up those payments. But here's the thing. There's another dirty little secret. We're knocking on the door of 20 trillion with a T, $20 trillion in debt.
Yes. Thank you, Republican.
So how do we deal with that as we because the promise of more coverage at a lower cost and better health care hasn't happened. The promise of $2,500 a reduction per family, that was the average that President Obama talked about. All right, $2,500 reduction. It's actually gone the opposite direction by $3,700.
That's the insurance company.
So we cannot afford it. It is collapsing on itself the way that So the question now is what do we do about it? All right? And I don't believe it is rescuable the way that it is structured. So we need to go back. Now there are some.
How much money do you take from insurance companies?
There's not enough taxes, sir, to get to that point.
How much money do you take from insurance companies?
Hold on. Let's be respectful of the gentleman. All right. So what we need to do is preserve some of those things that are very positive elements of that. I don't believe anybody should be excluded from coverage because of a pre-existing condition. By the way, that was laid out in the Republican Better Way plan. That's also part of, absolutely it was. You go to better.gop, you can read it. Denise, yes it is. So that's one thing. Secondarily, we need to make sure that there's no lifetime caps. I think that makes sense. All right? So then you're, in fact, I've signed on to a bill by Greg Walden, who's chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, that lays those two things out. So I'm on record on that. I'm not so sure about the magical number of 26, but having the students be able to stay on their parents makes sense. All right. So there's some elements of that make sense. What doesn't make sense to me is taking the path with, and I know he's here. I saw the doctor. Rob. Oh, sorry. So we had, I thought, a very productive conversation today. Enlightening. Okay.
Not listening again, huh, Bill?
I think it was productive, enlightening, because, and I don't want to misrepresent it. You can say if I'm wrong or not. There are some who believe that we should not have any private pay or private insurance companies. That this ought to be all. And whatever vehicle that is, whether it's Medicare or some other sort of structure, Medicare. I just don't believe that that's the direction to go. And I don't think that
I want to give you credit. The last town hall you said that we were going to get together, and we did. We had 4 physicians, a social worker, and nurse case manager there, and we had you and your crew. And I said it was enlightening. I didn't leave with a lot of hope or thoughts that things would change.
Meaning, like that we're going to agree. I didn't change your mind, you didn't change mine.
I don't think there's a point at which we all come together and sing Kumbaya. I think we are very separate in how we believe this thing should work. I think that the problem with the Affordable Care, I raised my hand both times.
Yep.
Okay? I think everyone should have health care, and I also think that the ACA was not the way to go, because the cost of care was not addressed, okay, for people. High deductible plans are causing bankruptcy. 62% of bankruptcies in 2014 were caused by health care in this country. High deductible plans are not tenable to the average person in this county making $60,000, in your district I think somewhere in the 40s or 50s. If someone has a $4,000 deductible just for going into the hospital, if you go into the hospital you're hitting $4,000 pretty quick. You can't do that. That busts your budget. And so that was never addressed, okay? So the cost of care, and the Better Way plan, I've read it, actually some of it leaked out and we were just looking at it before we started here, some of the parts of it. And it all has to do with tax credits to pay premiums, high deductible plans, HSA expansion, which doesn't help middle income or poor people because they can't fund it. And you may feel like it's a gotcha question. I don't. It's a yes/no question if you want it to be. My question is this, and I asked you this earlier, and I think I got your answer, but I didn't get a yes or no. Do you believe health care is a right?
Yes. So, and what I told the doctor is that I don't believe it is a constitutional right. It is not written into the Constitution. Much like housing is not a constitutional right. So housing is not a constitutional right. However, all right. But as we talked about, as a society, we have decided that there are minimum levels of care. You can walk into, by law, into any emergency room, and they will see you.
There's a federal law, it's called MTAL, Emergency Medicine Treatment of Active Labor Act. If you come to a hospital with an emergency, with anything, if you come in labor, you cannot be turned away. And so that's a step forward. It is an unfunded mandate, right? And so when people go in and they still get the bills and they still go through bankruptcy, they still have to.
And we pay for it.
So that is not, to me, an advanced society. That should not be the bar that we set.
Yeah.
Rob and I are starting to get to know each other. First it was over social media, now we've got a couple of face-to-face meetings.
Good.
And I hope you saw today, though, that we have a common goal.
No, I agree. Like I said, I feel like I came out of this enlightened. I really feel like I know where you stand on this. And it's a bit disheartening.
It's wrong.
I assumed that all of us together thought that healthcare was a right. I really assumed that. I just thought that was a no-brainer. And it was a nothing. And so I think a lot of people here think it is. I think a lot of people out there think it is. And I think when you said that the bait and switch and give them some Medicaid, that's a little bit disheartening to hear that, because giving people access to health care doesn't seem like a bait. It seems like maybe it was put together that way to say, hey, let's give them health care, then they're not going to want to give it up. Well, guess what? They don't want to give it up.
Yeah. So as I was saying to the doctor, having served in the state legislature as well, you're forever looking for those, quote, free dollars, right? Because you want, absolutely are. Whether it's, as a state legislature and as states, they're always looking for those dollars that are getting promised that come from the feds that are as unencumbered as possible, no strings. Here's the problem, though, folks. it always comes with strings eventually. And at some point or another, people are going to have to pay for these things. I understand, Rob, I understand that there are people. But what we then need to do is we need to reprioritize. We got to reprioritize a whole lot of stuff. There is, if you look at, just a second.
Strings attached.
If you look at the budget, if you look at the federal budget, about a third of it is spent on domestic spending. About a third of it is spent on defense spending. By the way, 2/3 of that is on automatic pilot. I don't even touch that. We deal with about a third of that pie. Right now, we are interest rates have been artificially held low over the last number of years. We have built up so much debt, what the federal government and Treasury and the Fed has done, all right, as they have traded in long-term debt for short-term debt, which is cheaper. Think about this, if you go and get a 5-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, right? And why have they done that? They've shoved it into shorter-term bonds, is because they can artificially keep low how much we've been paying in interest. What's going to happen is when interest rates return to normal, and I'm not talking 1984, you know, who bought a house then at 22%, all right? I'm not talking that. I'm just talking to historical norms. Interest on the debt is going to be larger than either our domestic spending or our defense spending. That's problematic, folks, all right? So it has nothing to do, you cannot tax people enough to get rid of where our deficit is. And we are going to have to deal with short-term, medium-term, and long-term things. Here's an area that I disagree with the president. All right, you ready for this? Ready for this? Okay. I believe that we actually do have to have a discussion about entitlements. We need to talk about
corporate entitlements.
The board that oversees the Social Security and Medicare says that in 2028, Medicare is not going to be able to reimburse 100% of what they're promising now. And 2034, I think it is, or 2036, a 21% reduction in Social Security. 21% reduction. Okay. So what? And it doesn't take an engineer to figure out that if we did a 1 degree change right now, or a 2 degree change right now, if it was from me to you, and we were going to take off a straight line and go 1%, you know, 1 degree, that's not very far. All right. By the time we get to the back of the room, that's pretty significant, and that gives people time. I'm 48. I've got time to adjust, right? I got 25 years at least of working ahead of me.
Well, if we can help.
Who wants to hear about my medical care? All right. Let's talk about my medical care, because for me and for my staff, guess what? We're on the Obamacare exchange in Washington, D.C. Yes, my family is on the Medicare exchange, on the Obamacare exchange. Through D.C., I might add. My Michigan staff are required to go through the D.C. Obamacare exchange. All right?
Good.
So we know and live it. I know what's happened to my own premiums. I know what's happened to my own copays, and those have gone up. So we're good. So we don't have the free health care, no dental, no vision. We have to buy all those things, which is perfectly fine. That's great. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about what we do. So back to our point though, if we can make some small changes now, those will have some long-term lasting effects. I've got kids 19 down to 10. And I've told them, first of all, get used to not having the government necessarily be there to provide for all of the promises that they've made. All right. Secondarily, the system, when the system was put in place, life expectancy was not nearly what it is right now. Not nearly. It was 67 and a half. All right. Life expectancy
let somebody
now
talk.
is well into the 80s, and our
Take another
system has not
question.
changed to adjust for that.
You're being rude.
So how, to your point, John, sir, what some of the things that I actually believe that we ought to discuss is looking at raising the cap. I'm pretty sure that Warren Buffett's going to be okay. He's not going to necessarily need it, but nor do I want to just take money from him and then use it to just pay others. I think that it ought to be looked at. We ought to look at adjusting that income level, adjusting the age, adjusting some of those things. You can do it very easily for every year. You move it a month. There are ways that we can do this without completely destroying it, because ultimately it needs to be a safety net that we have for society. Okay, so we have an overflow room as well in the back, and we've got probably about 60 people back there. I've got a couple of questions here. Doug Voss. Hey Doug from Walker is back there. He says North Korea just fired 4 missiles into the Sea of Japan. Kim ordered the execution of his half-brother. Are you for putting North Korea on the state-sponsored terrorist nation list? And Doug, actually, they were at one time. You might have recalled the axis of evil that President Bush had talked about. It is a huge problem. Here's why, folks. We have treaties with South Korea and Japan that will automatically get us into a war if North Korea were to attack either. And I've visited the DMZ. I've actually been in what's called the Peace House. It's the house that straddles both North and South Korea. It's awfully strange standing there with North Korean guards. You were right on the front lines. And you look at what's been happening with Japan. I've had a number of meetings with the Japanese government officials as well. They are very worried about this as North Korea is launching missiles over them out into the ocean, and they are looking at technology that could also potentially hit at a minimum Alaska and Hawaii and possibly come to the mainland. So we are going to have to deal with North Korea, and whether they specifically go on state-sponsored terrorism. They unlike Syria or unlike some of the other countries, haven't been out there sponsoring specific physical terrorist acts. They've been doing a lot of espionage on the computer networks and that kind of thing, and they're very good. So. Yeah, and obviously his half brother was killed. It was a Vietnamese woman and so many others. Russia did not kill his half brother. So, all right, and then Chris Mottler Gray is sorry, can't read where Chris is from, but please co-sponsor the Berta Caceres Human Rights in Honduras Act. No increase in military defense spending, especially not at the expense of safeguarding the environment and citizens. So I do believe we need to have an increase in our defense spending. Is our people, folks. And the military is also our people. And when you've got the military having to go to museums to cannibalize parts off of jets to keep jets absolutely unacceptable. You want to talk about people? How about our men and women in uniform who have gotten screwed, frankly?
What are you doing with the money?
On the pay increases and on their health care and on all kinds of other stuff. That's what's been happening. So they have
The money's not going to the soldiers.
absolutely paid a price. They have absolutely paid a price through the VA and the lack of care that these men and women have had, both physical as well as emotional and mental health. All right. Ryan, why don't you come down here? Right, just past the lady over there. But
Sick of American
right there.
We're just out there making money to eat the 1%.
Yep.
The United States can afford to protect the environment, build bridges, take care of...
I'm sorry, can you start? He was kind of shouting down here. Go ahead and start over again.
If the United States can't afford to protect the environment, take care of the health of its citizens, build bridges, or teach its children anymore, then what exactly is it defending with its military budget?
We have seen, I assume kind of what you were talking about is if we're domestic versus our defense spending, right?
Correct.
Way too much on defense.
So we have to do both, but there is primarily, first and foremost, a constitutional duty to protect our nation. That's the first thing that I talked about. Absolutely. All right. So we have a constitutional duty and right and responsibility. Now we might debate about where we should be. Should we have bases overseas? Should we have gotten into those? Should we have gotten into those requirements to go and protect Europe through NATO or Japan or South Korea or a number of others? But that's where we're at. All right, and I don't believe leaving NATO is the right thing. Neither is leaving Japan or South Korea in a lurch. But to the president's point, there historically not everybody's been paying what they have said that they would pay. All right, and so getting NATO members to pay what they're required 2% of their budget for their own defense is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. That's a good thing. And what that allows us to then maybe not have to have quite as many resources over there. Same thing with Japan, and Prime Minister Abe has definitely upped that. Very controversial in Japan, actually. They called him a warmonger because they were increasing that, I think, to like 1.5%. It was significant. So, yeah, and I think it's appropriate. So that is what we're going to have to do. We have to be able to do that. That's a constitutional right and duty that we have. A lot of our domestic spending isn't necessarily constitutional. It's things that we would all like to have and like to do. All right, but when we go and fill up our gas tank here in Michigan and we send that dollar off to Washington and we get 90 some odd cents back, I don't think that's fair, right? I think if we're going to raise that money here, we ought to use that money here. And then there are some national priorities that we have to have. We wouldn't have our national highway system. We wouldn't have a number of other things if we didn't have a portion of that. We can do both. However, we have to make sure that our defense spending is effective. We can't have the $300 wrenches and all the other stuff, and so every time that they go in and audit, we way too often we throw good money after bad. Historically, we've got to stop doing that on the defense side, but we also have to have the courage to have that conversation on the domestic side. All right.
Kushner, yeah, Blackwater.
I'm 24,
Okay.
and I'm from Holland, and I have a uterus. So my question for you, we've talked a little bit already about how healthcare you don't think is a right.
A constitutional right.
But is it a human right?
Guaranteed right.
But so at the beginning of his administration, Donald Trump cut funding to Planned Parenthood International based on their providing and today he said that he would allow Planned Parenthood to remain funded if they no longer provided abortions, despite the fact that they have not received federal funding for abortion since 1976. Whose health care is still under my parents because I am a student, and the Affordable Care Act going away would mean that I would be screwed and all of my health care services would have to come through Planned Parenthood.
They wouldn't necessarily have to, but we can talk about that.
What are you going to do to defend the health care rights of women like me who have uteruses and need to have them taken care of in order to live full and healthy lives and make our country better?
Okay, so it's Rachel, right? Okay, so Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.
So I suspect we're going to disagree about the pro-life, pro-choice question. Yeah. So I'm
It's your body.
I'm for abortion. Yeah. So here's what has happened with Planned Parenthood. The Hyde Amendment, which had been something that we had put in place every single time when budgets were up, when our appropriations bills were up. We battled through this with the Obama administration. They tried pulling the Hyde Amendment out a number of times. Here's one thing that has happened. We have seen a polarization within Congress on this particular issue. There used to be way more pro-life Democrats, and there used to be way more pro-choice Republicans. There's almost none at this point. It's in single digits on both sides. All right, so it's a philosophical divide that has turned into a political divide. So what the House had proposed was taking away the federal funding of Planned Parenthood and giving that money to federally qualified health care centers, FQHCs. The national statistic is there is 20 FQHCs for every one Planned Parenthood organization. Absolutely. And in Michigan, it's slightly below that. It's still in the teens. It's in the teens. For every one Planned Parenthood operation, there are multiple federally qualified healthcare centers. We in the House said, you know what? We want to take that money from Planned Parenthood and give it to those federally qualified healthcare centers, which is where you could go to get your testing done and the various things. That's what we do. So.
What kind of medically necessary abortion?
So that is covered differently, and they don't have to. You don't have to use Planned Parenthood for that. There are hospitals that cover that, and if it is truly a medical emergency on that, then that gets taken care of differently. So the belief that with the Hyde Amendment, what we had done is we had tried to turn that into permanent law. We fought that, which was odd to me because the Obama administration said, well, we're fine with this every year, but we don't want to actually turn it into law. They were hoping to be able to turn that over, all right? So forgive the skepticism from a number of us who look at that and say, maybe you want to have a long-term plan to actually fund abortions by taxpayer dollars, which I think is inappropriate. So we have added that language in to do exactly that, and it has become permanent law, which I think is the appropriate thing to do. So,
well, federal funding doesn't go to abortions at Planned Parenthood.
Not directly. You're right. And what it does is it gives them money from other areas that they can move into. So do you think Planned Parenthood would take up the deal if they didn't perform abortions, that they would maintain their funding?
No, because I believe that abortions and the right to control your own body is the right of every human. issue and the pro-life coming in and saying, first of all, it's not pro-life, it's pro-birth. In order to be pro-life, you have to fund programs like foster care. You have to fund programs like welfare, like WIC, like food stamps.
If abortion was legal, when my wife was conceived out of wedlock, she would have been aborted, and I would not have my wife.
If abortion had been illegal 1 year ago, my goddaughter would not have been born because her mother had to have a medically necessary abortion while she would have still been pregnant when my goddaughter was conceived. So we have things like that on both sides. You can't say just because may have been aborted that no one should ever have an abortion. I'm thankful that you have a wife. That's incredible. That's awesome. But other people are here because of previously existing abortions. Abortions are important. It is a woman's right to choose.
I suspect we are not going to agree on this particular issue.
She's your constituent.
I have supported adoption. I have supported a number of those things that you've been talking about, and we need to continue to do that. We will continue to do that. Okay. Start with the gentleman right there in the blue shirt. We got you last time, Brett.
I think some guys should vote like
Congressman,
Yes.
we agree that this country is nearly $20 trillion in debt.
Yes.
If we pay this back at the rate of $1 billion every single day, my 2-year-old granddaughters will be eligible for Social Security. That's 60 years of paying $1 billion every day just to close our debt down. To get there, we are now going to debt at $2 to $2.5 billion every day. That means we have to cut the budget by $1 trillion a year. How big do we have to grow our economy to get to the point of actually paying off our debt?
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
And for anybody here who can read, which I question sometimes.
That's very respectful.
Very respectful.
That was respect.
Open up a history book. Open up a history book and read about the Weimar Republic and what's going to happen to this country in about 10 years. You won't have $1 in your pocket.
So,
That was a state in 1946.
I suspect most of you didn't come here to hear about my committee work. However, I serve on the Financial Services Committee. I'm a subcommittee chair. It's called Capital Markets, Securities and Investments. So it touches literally every publicly traded company in America. It touches every single one of your retirement accounts, investment accounts. We have oversight over all that. But last term, I chaired the Monetary Policy and Trade Subcommittee. I had oversight of the IMF, the World Bank, and the Fed. And this is a reckoning that is going to happen here in this country at some point. And a friend of mine, not that long ago, gave me his question was about the Weimar Republic and sort of what are those effects of what's going to happen long term. And I saw this go to Central America, when they were having their crises, Nicaragua, the Eastern Bloc, when they were coming out of that, Germany, when it was coming out of World War I, was literally reprinting bills. All right, a $10 bill became a $1,000 bill, which then became a $10,000 bill. Why? Because you needed a wagon load of cash to go buy bread that you couldn't afford in the afternoon that you got in the morning because of inflation. I'm extremely, extremely concerned about what this means for everybody. It doesn't matter what your political stripe is. All right, this is why you've got people like Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul and Ron Paul all saying, you know what, we should audit the Fed and figure out what's happening on this book. I actually have a bill that audits the Fed. It's called the Fed Oversight Reform and Modernization, and it does a whole lot of other things. Because as you're pointing out, if we don't get our short-term, medium-term, and long-term spending under control, at some point or another, this is all going to catch up with us. And the additional dollars that we are racking up on the credit card, oftentimes, by the way, to other nations, is going to come home. It's going to come home at some point. And so that is a minor. All right. Who would like to talk about the wall? All right. Do I need a specific question about it? I'll get to you. But, so, do we need a specific question about it, or do you want me to just talk about it?
No, right here.
You had a question.
Our immigration question.
Yeah, I have a question about immigration and the ban that, there's actually two things. We've got a wall that we've been hearing about, and then we also have this ban on immigration from different countries. And I am wondering how, I see that you're supportive of that when I see your Facebook page. And
Supportive of?
The ban of, the immigration ban.
The pause. You're talking about the executive order?
Yes.
Okay, the pause.
That's what you call it? The pause?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, Trump calls it a ban.
It creates a lot of chaos.
Yes,
Right now, there's a lot of anxiety in families. There's a lot of anxiety in communities. Right in Holland, on the north side of Holland, we have kids terrified coming to school that are in tears, that are full of anxiety. And they're supposed to go to school and concentrate and get good test scores when they are wondering if their aunt or uncle are going to be home when they get home, or if anybody will be there. Some may be legal, some may not be legal. At this point, the trust has been eroded in general. And so there's kind of a few things, I know you want it real quick, but if I were to be asked for my identification to find out if I am a legal person here in the United States, I would refuse. That is just a disgrace. By the way, that would be unconstitutional. But it is happening. ICE, not only is ICE going and knocking on doors, it's also getting on planes and they're getting on buses and they are asking people. Now, I don't know if there's really a question in there, but I would like your response on all of that. Oh, and another thing, that if we are in fact trying to hold up our secure borders, why aren't we doing more about protecting our democracy and the invasion of what Russia is doing